West Smoke, boy.
Welcome. Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Srđan Dejanović, and this is Tilt Podcast. Tilt Podcast hosts the superheroes of the legal transformation space from across Europe and beyond. So I'm super excited to have, to welcome our guest today, Gregoire Miot, the lead evangelist business and business development associate director at Wolters Kluwer and president of the European Legal Tech Association. So first of all, just a brief introduction, Greg.
Thank you so much for having me, Srđan. Always a pleasure.
Awesome. So, all superheroes have an origin story, right? So we want to know more about what's yours. It's my personal opinion, and I believe I share this with a lot of people. Greg is one of the most significant people in legal tech in Europe. So we believe that only people with inspiration can inspire other people. So I want to know more about your inspiration, about your journey. How did you come to that point where you are right now? And tell us what was the secret sauce.
Well, that's super flattering to be qualified superhero. To be honest, I just see myself as someone who's really passionate about what he does. I love my job, and that's also I've built a bit the journey to get there. And if I look back 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and in my early years at law school, I think if I had to guess a dream job, I think I would be fairly close to what I would have wanted to do. Also because that kind of job did not exist back then. All our jobs in the legal innovation sector did not exist sometimes 1, 2 years, 5 years ago. So that's what's so exciting. And with all the new jobs actually coming up, and now with ChatGPT, we have now prompt engineers. I mean, who would have guessed that even in December? So that's super exciting. If I have to get it from the very beginning, I have a law background, legally educated in France. I've actually did all my law studies here. I ended with an LLM in business law of the Arab countries, where I got really some kind of a specialty in arbitration in oil and gas. It was a bit the topic that I had. Along that, I was already involved at the university in a couple of associations, a couple of extracurricular activities. I was already very eager to get started, to get my hands in a couple of topics. I was always a bit torn also between law and technology. Just after high school, I was even wondering if I wanted to go to an engineering school or to law school. Actually, close friends even went to engineering school, and I picked somehow the traditional path with law. And when you get
sorry,
to
I'm just going to interrupt you
sure.
here. This is very, very interesting because one of my closest partners and actually a guy that made it very big in the legal industry. He's running one of the leading law firms in this region. Also had a similar case. So after high school, it was like go to engineering school or to law school. So I'm very curious about that because at some point he made a choice to make a career in the legal industry. However, we just need to bear in mind that he's a bit older, so at that point probably there wasn't a lot of traction when it comes to legal tech. However, yeah. I still consider him as one of the most forward-thinking lawyers in the region. But just want to know, in your case, what was the deciding moment? What made you turn to law and not to engineering?
Yeah, well, you're 18, 19, you're just out of high school, and when you bring up the topic of your parents, actually, they all go with actually, well, please do a serious job, right? So please go to law school if you want to do silly stuff in the future with your life and to work with computers and stuff. They just pretty much don't understand very much actually what's the kind of future of that. So they want you to do something a bit more traditional, reassuring, right? So you need to go through also this period of grieving actually the overpath that you did not take in the early years of law school, because well, early years of law school has absolutely nothing to do with digitization of the legal profession. It's actually back to the basics and really traditional theoretical thinking around actually what the legal frameworks are and how it works, and to acquire this really legal thinking, which is extremely important. And maybe I'll come back to this, because having a legal background for whatever you can do in your life, I believe it served me well in many different occasions. At the same time, so during my law studies at the university, I still had this appetite for digitization. So I was already doing a couple of things, and somehow started a side business to create websites for actually legal professionals, for law firms, and that's a specification for the French market, but this also applies to a couple of European countries, similar countries. I mean, legal professionals and lawyers, law firms being a regulated profession, they have very specific rules regarding communication and marketing, obviously. And in France, in particular, they still have, and back then they had very strict rules regarding how you can promote yourself through a website. And it was a niche activity. You pretty much had to actually match with a certain criterias. For example, not registering a domain name, which would be a bit like something a bit too abusive. So let's say paris-lawyers.com. I mean, this doesn't apply. You just cannot actually promote yourself like being the lawyers for Paris on a website. So you have to actually register something which is a bit more reasonable. And same thing with a couple of things. You cannot actually say anything on this website. You need to also, once the website is actually finalized, you need to submit it to the bar association. And the funniest part is back then, and I mean, when I say back then, it wasn't actually 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I mean, that was in the 2015, right? 2014. And you had to actually print out the website, all the pages, send them by regular mail, so that actually the bar association could review the list of hyperlinks that you had on your website. That's the craziest part of the whole process. But well, it was a niche activity. I had a lot of fun creating a couple of websites. Also, it was feeding my appetite for technology. But then at some point, you graduate. I got my law degree and say, okay, I mean, that's the end of actually doing digital stuff. You need to get a proper regular job, right? And I had this opportunity to go and work for a law firm, American law firm, Mexican-American law firm in Mexico City for a couple of years. So this is actually when I left France, when I graduated, and ended up working for 3 years for a wonderful law firm in Mexico City called Goodrich Riquelme. I was working for 2 different practices. One was the French desk, and the other one was the oil and gas energy practice that we had at there. Fantastic colleagues. I had an amazing partner, David Enriquez, one of the smartest lawyers I've met, super expert in his domain. I've learned a lot with him, and we had amazing cases. It was also an amazing moment to get to approach this topic, because it was the Mexico just had a constitutional reform, so it was really the opening of the oil and gas market, and they had this way to really open deepwater projects in the Gulf of Mexico for many oil majors, international players. So super interesting, super exciting, and I learned a lot. It was rather a big law firm, around 300 people. The law firm, international customers, a lot of arbitration cases. So great. I had a great time. But somehow,
you didn't do,
yeah.
Sorry, but you at that point you weren't involved in legal tech projects, so you were practicing law. Like, okay,
yeah,
so
was practicing law. Well, at
Yeah.
some point, actually, I had to catch up a bit with my tech savvy geek profile that I had, because they were looking for someone to take care a bit of the innovation matters, external communication part actually. So I ended up taking care of the external directories, which is the worst thing that you can do in a law firm usually. That's really for marketing people, to interact with legal 500 and chambers and partners and stuff of this kind, right? But it's also about your external presence and what you want to do. And well, this is where I discovered that you have also an old guard in these law firms, especially when they're very traditional and well with a long tradition, which is also great because it's also what makes them very successful. But this law firm has almost, I think it's almost 100 years old now.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of tradition and also very difficult to make things move when you have actually that much history in there with so many different people. So just to agree on actually new things and innovation. So I was a bit frustrated on a couple of things regarding digitization, and this is where I started to work. I was thinking, hey, I mean, we could definitely improve our way of working on cases. We should have actually an online tool just to follow what we do with our cases. I mean, just not sharing emails. May sound a bit silly. It was, again, back in 2013, 14. This is where I started actually well, drafting, analyzing what we could do, and having just kind of some kind of a landing page. So I was thinking of my actually skills to create a website. This one actually went very wild because I started really working on something like this and say, you know what, I'll actually start working on some kind of a practice management software. That's really what I need. The market already had a couple of things. It was the early years also of very big success stories in the US, Clio and others, actually big My Case and all these actually practice management softwares. So it was super exciting. I was also getting inspired by something like this. But what I had in mind was, what really matters to me is that what I'm doing once, I want the tool to help me do it twice and do it smarter. So I wanted to analyze my behavior. So actually, if in an arbitration case that I have here, I want to be able to repeat this in, I don't know, 10 different actually arbitration cases to actually help me have in mind what I did in the past. So this is where I started working on this app. I was all alone. I actually called it Legal Next, and I spent actually tremendous amount of time on this thing. I mean, when I say tremendous I mean nights and weekends and stuff of this kind. Became some kind of an obsession. But I was all alone on this. It was maybe one of the best lessons I learned. It's actually working on your own is not going to help at all.
And what was the so basically let's put it like this. Bottom line, at some point you decided to do things differently. So 9 out of 10 people, just there are a lot of factors why they do the things they do. And at some point we were these people, right? And it's not anything bad. It's just the culture. That's the workflow, right?
Yeah.
But what was the core motivation where you decided, okay, I want to improve this process. I don't want to do the same thing all over again. I want to make something different, and I want to spend my weekends, my nights doing that. So this is a big thing, right? So it's not just about it's something interesting. When it's something interesting, I watch Netflix. It takes me like 1 hour. Well, not anymore. I have a little baby, you know that. But at some point, you decided to invest your free time into this. So what's the motivation for that?
At some point you just figure out that you're doing things wrong. You're spending time on things that appear to yourself as very much low value. I mean, ridiculous value. And well, working in a law firm, and you're a lawyer yourself, you had your own law firm, Surgeon, and billable hour. I mean, even though there are a lot of discussions on billable hour and everything, but you need to timesheet somehow. So you need to demonstrate that you provide value. And when I'm working on something and I'm doing things and actually continuing to keep finding the same template and looking for information and trying to structure and report and actually structure things and have actually a good understanding of how my case is moving, you're spending so much time doing silly stuff to share, to collaborate, to exchange with colleagues and things of this kind. It's terrible. So I just became obsessed in how could I improve my whole working process. I've always been very much process driven, but this became somehow an obsession. So I spent almost a year and a half working on this, making small improvements here and there. And at some point I discovered that actually I could attend a couple of conferences, interesting conferences in the US. So bought myself a ticket, 2014, I believe, was it, to attend Legal Week in New York, ALM event, amazing event. And I just discovered, I went there, top of the Fifth Avenue. You have Hilton just in front of Central Park. And I got there and I just discovered that you could actually fill out 3 whole floors with booths with legal tech companies. And it was the most mind-blowing experience I had to discover, well, I'm not all alone. All these people actually have pretty much had the same idea as I did. And this is where actually I believe somehow I switched. I just figured out, I mean, I love law. I love the legal industry. I love what I'm doing. I love actually all the legal engineering and actually what it provides in terms of intellectual stimulation was great. I really enjoyed it very much and enjoyed working with these colleagues on complicated cases. But I was actually much more excited about what I could do for lawyers being on the other side. And so coming back, I just actually had a discussion with the partner and decided to actually, well, stop all of this and go back to France to pursue an opportunity with a legal tech company. Went back, took me a little bit of time. I wanted to settle myself, actually started working again with my own company on a couple of digital projects and tried at this moment really to dedicate a lot more time to this practice management software. Again, being all alone. And this is also where I took somehow the biggest slap in my face on on actually the entrepreneurial actually path that you could take. I had a law degree, no business school, no nothing actually. So I knew pretty much nothing on how to build properly a business case and everything. But I was still convinced that I could be doing something with this project. I had a hard time trying to get on board my colleagues back at the law firm, trying to see how it works and get their impression. I felt somehow in the process that I was a bit too much ahead of actually what they wanted to do and how they were willing to work with something like this. So this is where actually I started to identify that change management is also a very difficult part. But still, I was too obsessed with this thing, and I kept working on it until I very much got to a point where I failed. I had to actually admit that I had failed, and I discovered that in 2 different occasions. First one is I attended a meetup in Paris with someone from the I think it was an alumni from the Harvard Business School. Quick meetup in Paris, and he was talking about entrepreneurial paths and what you could be doing. And at the end of the meetup, I just actually called him and say, "Hey, was great listening to you, but I just have a quick question. What kind of advice can you give to someone who's a solo entrepreneur?" And he told me, "Well, it might surprise you, but the best advice I could give you is get a freaking partner. You're not going to succeed in anything doing all of this all alone." And it came a bit as a shock. I was like, yes, well, it's also actually reaching a bit the limits of what I'm able to do in terms of development and kind of thing. Was really hard-coded PHP, thousands of lines of all of this was good, but that was reaching also the limits of what I could be doing. So, and yet I was convinced that it was very difficult to find someone who had this combination of law and engineering. But that's also because I think I was completely wrong in thinking that I had to find someone who would combine both. Actually, combination comes from a team. And I was all wrong, all alone. And then second thing is where really somehow I just buried this whole project was when I submitted this project to an initiative led by the Paris Bar Association. It's called the Incubator, and they were actually awarding an innovation project. And it was the first edition of this innovation award. And I submitted my case with screenshots and everything and what I really wanted to do. And back then, 2015, it was really the early years of legal innovation. So not much was really in the market at this moment, especially in France. And well, no surprise, I didn't win the award. I didn't get anything. And I got actually a comment from the jury, which was actually, your project looks great, but it's far too ambitious. You're crazy, practically speaking. So it came as some kind of a fan award as well, because it was too forward thinking. It was too futuristic. It was, well, no one was ready for something like this, and yet it was a failure at the same time, because it wasn't ready. It wasn't really an MVP, because you could do a couple of things, but not to the point where it can really help and deliver value and timesheet properly as actually people would expect. It taught me a lot of things. that actually somehow you need to stick with what the customer wants. You need to follow that. You need to hear what they have to say. So you're not actually you do not bury yourself and actually in this long process of actually I know what they want, I know what they want, and this is how it goes. So it was a great lesson. So I had to acknowledge that actually I would have to move forward with doing something else. This is where I joined a media company. They had a couple of digital subsidiaries, and I was hired to develop one of their international projects on legal educations for LLMs platforms to reference or innovation programs that they had, and they eventually ended up leading the whole digital subsidiaries that they had with a couple of things. It was very much an entrepreneurial adventure, pretty much an intrapreneurial actually.
So you switched kind of to the education, digital education.
Yeah, it was a couple of things. It was at the same time digital education, referencing LLMs, also on the hiring process for legal professionals, for legal tech companies as well. So I was already somehow connected in the sector, and this media group was also and still is actually pretty much in the ranking the tool and ranking actually editor called Leaders League. But I was much more actually involved into these digital activities. Never wanted to get into these rankings things and events and all of this. Wasn't really my cup of tea. So,
but just wanted to briefly, because I think this is super important to emphasize, to briefly get back to what you said about you failed the project, and because I went through the same road. However, my first startup failure was a fintech. It wasn't my know-how. I just entered the startup arena. I was still in law school, but we already talked about it. But the key takeaway is that entrepreneurial mindset and entrepreneurship is light years away, and it's totally opposite from an expert mindset where you invest time and receive money. So if we're talking about a mindset of a lawyer, you provide service, you get money, period, yeah. Right? However, when you're an entrepreneur, and when I say entrepreneur, I mean a true innovator where you introduce something different or something that people know, but you introduce it in a different way that you don't know if it's going to work. You don't know if people are going to like it. So basically, you're investing a large part of your life into something that may not ever be a success. And the craziest part is you knowing that you keep doing it. And yeah. This is, I think this is super important, because when people want to kind of, say, oh, that's great. I heard this guy Greg talk about his roadmap, his journey. Now he's a big shot in Wolters, Kluwer, and etc. They need to know when it comes to innovation. And again, if you're doing something different from traditional stuff in the legal industry, that's innovation.
Yeah,
you need to have fundamental understanding that it's not I give and I receive. It's I give. And maybe at some point I will receive something. And if you're in this 1%, I will receive a lot of things. So, that mindset needs to be focused, because while you're doing that, you may have a family, you may need to have another job, because it doesn't pay right away. Usually, if you're like, if it's your like fifth venture and you have a lot of money stacked somewhere and you're just investing like 10% in your new venture, that's a different story. But for beginners, for entrepreneurs, it's super difficult just to endure like the pressure coming up from all the sides. So I think this is very important to
super important lessons, and I couldn't agree more. Honestly, because I think that at some point, whoever is starting some kind of an entrepreneurial journey, well, many of them actually already have a daily job, something that actually helps you feed yourself, your family, and provide. But at some point, I think that's one of the biggest questions you ask yourself: when is the right moment to actually just let everything else go and go full speed on your activity. When is the right moment to pull the plug on one side and actually start really working full time on your project? It's really hard because you never know exactly when is the project going to go full speed and actually get traction on the market and everything. So it's assessing actually your risk and defining. There is no way you can possibly avoid taking some risk, some level of risk. It's impossible. Actually, that's pretty much part of the entrepreneurial journey. If you're risk averse, well, just don't do it. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's really important because there's no shame in not being a startup guy.
Yeah.
To be honest, a lot of times I think, wow, I would really use, a steady paycheck, knowing what's coming for me.
Yeah.
But the feeling in the gut just says, no, man, you're crazy. You need to stay on your path. So again, this is quite all right. I basically admire people that understand themselves enough and are conscious enough to make that choice, because you doing what's good for you and what's right for you is the main point. Don't be the guy that just likes the attention and it looks sexy from the outside. It looks, startup, I'm in innovation, people just giving thumbs up. But on the other side, reality is that from that innovation, you need to, exactly what you said, not only take care of yourself and your own. If you have a company, you're responsible for these people. You're responsible for your investors. You're responsible for your partners. You're responsible for your employees, colleagues, and so on. So there's no shame in saying, no, man, I'm not for that. Let me just be an expert. Let me do what I do. And, it's all good. So just fast forward to coming to the media company. Just want to get a glimpse of so we talked about your beginning, and we want to just fast forward to not right now, but what led you to right now. So just give me that.
In this actually media group, this is where I was also very much working with the legal industry around education, hiring. We had also communication and digital projects agency to develop new websites and new projects and online platforms for with specific projects for law firms to interact with their customers and everything. So I was somehow gravitating around legal technology, attending many different events with law firms and innovation and everything. So I was involved in this. So it just kept feeding my interest for legal technology, and I still wanted to be in there, and I kept building also my understanding and knowledge around what was happening in legal technology. So this is where I got to start discussing and also making a couple of contributions to a couple of legal programs, LMs, on actually the digitization and innovation cycles. And at some point, after a couple of years at this media group, three or more years, I got the opportunity to join a fantastic French success story company called Legisway, founded 20 years ago, that was in the process of getting acquired by Wolters Kluwer. And I wanted to join this company, not because just it was actually a very French company, but because they were acquired by an international group, which wanted to transform this into an international success story. So I was very much interested in this international path that it could take. So I joined the company 2018. I was joining there to lead their new markets, so pretty much on a sales position, to really go hard on really strategic opportunities with complicated customers. As we started distributing the solution, was really oriented towards legal departments, digitizing pretty much all their processes, contracts, litigation, corporate, many different possibilities and many different things. Great solution to get your head around it, to understand very well how it works. And I've spent a bit more than almost 2 years working in that kind of position. Then was invited to lead the new business team, still also with this cap of being really the preacher for legal technology, and still very involved in the legal tech community. Also now and then, a bit more than a year ago, I took the lead on the global sales development, business development position in the global team of the legal software business unit of Wolters Kluwer for, again, this corporate legal department segment. And since a couple of months now, I'm leading pretty much the product management and business enablement, which covers also customer care and sales enablement, sales ops, and everything. So super exciting projects. Company is also making many different acquisitions. We just acquired an AI company called Della with amazing people joining. So it just keeps getting more and more interesting. So I'm also changing my role, assisting sales, accompanying the business, working with marketing people, now working with product management as well, connecting this with this business-oriented approach and with customers and everything. It's great. It's moving fast. That's what I was expecting. It's challenging. I love what I'm doing, very much passionate about it. And on the side, well, I just keep feeding my interest for the legal tech market. And that's why also I got involved a bit more than 3 years ago with ELTA as the ambassador for France. Then I actually got to take a position on the board and the presidency last December. It's great. You keep meeting great people, and I think that's also part of actually what everyone should have in mind to keep connecting with people. We actually got to meet together a couple of years ago. We had pretty much our first child almost at the same moment, so we had so much to share. You get to meet great people on these journeys. So it's very much about being open-minded. I'm always grateful to actually make new friends and incredible friends and meet incredible people like yourself, Sergeant, to keep interacting. We actually, the most amazing part is that with COVID, I don't think we have ever met more than once in person. And even though we were actually chatting on WhatsApp, I don't know, every week or every 2 weeks and exchanging pictures and things of this kind. So it's great. You get to meet with new people. It's about very much being open-minded. That's one of the lessons. The other one, I guess, is I like actually being a yes person. My wife tends to hate me for being a yes person because I tend to say yes to pretty much everything. Every time people like Surgeon come to me and say, "Hey, man, you want to actually help me with that kind of project and do that stuff?" I mean, yes. I'm always excited by new things, so I think it's a great thing. But at the same time, if you want to do many things, you also need to get support from your close ones. That's maybe one of the most important things. I have an amazing wife. She's a fantastic lawyer, way better than I could have ever been. So very much actually admiring her skills, but I need her support more than anything. It's really super important to actually have someone who has your back also to support you in this journey. And then it's
so big applause for our wives. A big applause.
Oh yeah. To yours too, Surgeon, because she has to bear with you too. Huh?
Yeah, exactly. The same thing. The same thing. Well, shout out to them.
Yeah, okay. If both of them are listening, yeah, well, thank you. It's also about actually, I think you mentioned this before as well. It's about giving without expecting to receive. You need to give back. I mean, the legal tech community gave me so much, and most of the time in occasions that I would not be expecting. So don't be shy, don't be greedy. Just give without expecting anything else. That's great. Help fellows in the legal tech community, in your own legal tech community, and wherever you are. It's super important. There are great things, great initiatives. It's also important, I guess, and especially in the legal sector, but that's more my legal background talking now, to keep doing things also which are not always business oriented. I guess that anyone being involved in law has their back of their heads, this goal to make sure that, access to law, access to justice remains actually one of the big things, the big goals that we have. That's also what we're pursuing with the ELTA, European Legal Tech Association, to make sure that also behind any kind of initiative, we still have some kind of a bit of this in mind. Law is pretty much the bedrock of everything. And it's important to make sure that we steer things in the right direction with initiatives, also pursuing net zero and fighting against climate change. I know we have this initiative, Green Clause, on this thing, and we'll be working on this together. But there are so many different things that we need to do in that sense.
And there are so many verticals. If you say I'm into law, right? It can be so many things, and still people do not understand it because we tend to have these shortcuts in our head. So if I do this, I probably will be better off doing that. So I probably be better off being a lawyer, which is awesome. Again, my best friend is a lawyer. My mom is a lawyer. We're all, from that background. But I would always, getting back to my point where you need to know yourself, I would always encourage people to kind of think about, is this vertical right for me?
Yeah.
Am I in because legal industry is a huge ecosystem, right? So sometimes I think, especially in the private sector, the corporate mindset where it's always you and not the other guy, and where you always kind of climb up the ladder. This, I think, is one of the biggest differences when it comes to legal tech, because when you're in the innovation space, it's a lot different for the corporate mindset. So you need to be open to other people, to other ideas, and I think that's the biggest advantage, because that's the synergy that gets you here. So kudos for that. I think that's also very, very important. So I just wanted, if you have something to add on that, feel free. But after that, I wanted to touch base on some, let's say, core topics that we had at Tilt, because aside from your journey and your story, we need to pick your brain and use your competence a little bit and your insights. So a lot of things have been happening on the market, and there's a lot of hype when it comes to AI, but a lot of that hype is also very well based. So it's not coming from nothing.
Yeah,
it's not like Bitcoin going up or down, right? It's about a leap, truly a leap when it comes to not tech but application, true application in tech, where you can use it, I can use it, everybody can use it, right? And these open AI products, and everybody's been talking about them, but there's a couple of stories, very specific stories I wanted to pick your brain about. So first of all, Harvey, A&O, do you have something to add on that?
Well, that's also an interesting adventure. It ties also to pretty much all the different initiatives that we see right now around actually AI and ChatGPT and what we can do with large language models. I guess that, beyond actually what the immediate applications that we see, and because it has actually, all of us actually have been playing around. I've been using it for many different things. ChatGPT is amazing actually at drafting and actually providing you with optimized Excel formulas for very complicated spreadsheets, even, VB macros and everything. Highly recommended. Saved me, tremendous amount of time. But also for other things like just making a synthesis on something, improving an email that you're writing, a couple of things, it just saves you time on many things. It's like this this quote that we had on the which says, I was going to write a shorter email but didn't have time to. So and this has so much to do with what the lawyers are doing, being actually concise and synthesizing everything. So, and these tools are doing great things, but that's just, I believe, the tip of the iceberg, and there's so much more coming. And beyond all the fantasy around placing lawyers and everything, it's telling us something about actually how we want to interact with our own data. And that's, I believe, maybe the most interesting aspect. This way of actually interacting with a system just based on a prompt is remarkable. And I think it's really this part which is helping us transition to a new generation of tools that we will see getting developed in the coming years, probably, to actually have less of this direct interaction with tables and manual actions on everything, but actually just to say, hey, I'd like to, I need to create an amendment to my contract X, and to actually prepare everything to organize it internally. And this would automatically start drafting, actually creating a project and initiate a proper workflow, and then actually draft an email and soliciting the advice of different people to automate a lot more. So just to actually to have less actions.
Yeah.
It's very disturbing because we're not used to this anthropomorphism that comes with ChatGPT, having actually some kind of an interface which actually states things in a very human manner, and is highly disturbing. Also because you never know actually if they're right or not, and actually if you ask really tricky legal questions, it may actually answer things that are highly inaccurate, and yet with actually a level of convincing and authority which is very disturbing.
And I think this is a perfect opportunity. Sorry to interrupt you. This is a
Yeah.
perfect opportunity to ask you also another kind of news. Well, it's not news per se, but the rising concerns of EU legislators when it comes to AI and ChatGPT. We were talking about the AI Act. We're talking about a lot of different legal framework aspects, and just getting to that point where you said I got a highly inaccurate response, right? So
Yes.
Obviously we need to be. It was a hilarious meme with Will Smith that's like, yo, he's talking with AI. I said,
Yeah.
you made a mistake, and the AI responds, yeah, but you did too. So I'm just I wanted to get your take on that. So are the concerns of AI's misuse relevant, and can potentially legislators slow down the expansion and the growth of this merging tech era, when it if you like to call it like that?
So the difficulty with AI, and if we actually look back at actually how AI evolved in legal sector, it's probably one of the very last sectors that actually saw the benefits of AI, because part of actually our job is working with the semantics. So nothing is 100% true or false. Not like in other maybe industries or whatever is actually in the scientific sector, which may be a bit more easier to actually analyze large amounts of data. But we're analyzing words, and words put together where actually the position of a comma can actually entail different meanings and different possibilities to interpret what is written. So it makes actually the whole work extremely difficult to have a firm position. It's always an interpretation. Now, I believe that the important aspect of what a lawyer should expect from it is that we need to make sure that we always know where the information is coming from, and the high value work is what the lawyer behind the screen, behind the tool, is able to provide in terms of position, because that's his expertise that we're leveraging, not actually what the AI is getting here. If we analyze actually a document, a decision, whatever, actually from hundreds of pages, what the kind of time we want to save is actually, well, get me that information, and can you start providing me with some kind of assessment of whether this information is already provided somewhere, and if I can find something like this. The final analysis obviously comes a lot from the lawyer itself. What we're expecting here, and I had this discussion during a presentation a couple of weeks ago at the bar school in France, which is the very, very high responsibility that editors of legal tech solutions have. And pretty much everything has to do with how much transparency we're providing on how these tools are built, how they work, what we can expect. And there's a lot around expectation management. Also because our own customers have a huge responsibility when it comes to providing legal opinion on anything. It's extremely decisive for their businesses. So we should be also very much transparent. So I guess the EU is doing great things in trying to frame this. Obviously, it took already so much time to get there. to have a proper definitions and different layers of the different types of AI. That's very difficult. This regulation does not include yet anything in relation with law, except for actually framing whatever kind of AI could be delivering, could be involved in justice decisions, which is again something a bit different. But we're not there yet. We're still in this gray area, and well, as most of the lawyers listening will can acknowledge, I mean, what is actually not strictly forbidden is, well, per se authorized. So it's still very in this open gray area where we will need to see a bit more of transparency, but I guess that's more relying on the editors being actually conscious enough of what they're putting in the hands of their customer to help them build and have actually the right approach. I mean, we all have our own ethics on what kind of tool we're using. The evolution of actually the expectations from end users of and end customers of law firms and legal services. I mean, have also expectations changing along the way. So we need to have all this in it.
And obviously, we will see how things will evolve. We just need to kind of differentiate the hype and the PR from actually what's actually being done, right? So after we read a LinkedIn post, we kind of, at least my experience in the legal industry, need to focus on the success stories and need to focus on what has actually happened. But one last thing I want to get your take on is the acquisition of 3PM Shield, a no-code AI platform to protect IP rights. The acquisition by eBay. So we're talking about the big players, e-commerce, big tech, acquiring legal tech tools. I'm not going to hype this up more. You know, it's basically a company acquiring another company. It's probably that they don't care too much if it's legal tech or not. But you know, the importance of tech solving legal problems is apparently very high. So just brief.
I mean, you know, the eBay is probably far closer to legal tech than we think it is. All the dispute resolution mechanism that they have online, you know, for any kind of small things that you're buying through a bid. I mean, they're dealing with at least, I believe the number is between 60 and 80 million dispute resolutions on a yearly basis. That's absolutely, I mean, that's more than any kind of justice system can provide on a yearly basis. That's absolutely insane in terms of number. So that's ODR, online dispute resolution mechanisms. Well thought, well designed, well structured, working very well. I mean, I had to deal with this. I mean, a couple of years ago. Somehow you see how it's working. So they're very close to that kind of environment, and it's definitely a very interesting acquisition to see in that kind of market and very unexpected. At the same time, we're at the moment of the legal tech market, really a moment that started maybe 1 or 2 years ago of heavy concentration of the legal tech market. So bigger actors centralizing solutions, stopping a bit this trend of high diversity, because buyers want also to have a bit more of this all-in-one, and to stop the bleeding of having small tools of everything everywhere, IT departments with cybersecurity threats. I mean, they want to centralize a bit more and rationalize their acquisition of solutions. So it's part of this big trend to see bigger actors evacuate smaller players and acquiring others. So super interesting moment, and we'll see a lot more of this going on in the coming months and years. I think 2023 will be a very interesting year in this regard.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, Gregoire Miot, also known as Greg. Big round of applause. We're not going to hear it, but to be honest, thank you very much. It was a great talk.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Sergeant. It was great. I mean, I'm not sure if this is an inspiring journey, but I'm thrilled to be sharing what I did. Don't have regrets. Every piece of experience is fantastic. I don't have any kind of regrets. Well, and enjoy your legal tech journey. It's a fantastic environment. I highly recommend to anyone getting involved in legal education to consider this as a very, very serious path.
So to summarize, enjoy your legal tech journey. No regrets. It's a wrap. Closing. Bye-bye. Take care.
Cheers.
Guess what, smoke boy?